Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to another live Manchester United news, takeover news, transfer news, and just general news show. We've got some big stories coming in on the future of Ten Hag by David Ornstein, Fabrizio Romano. A lot of indication to say, you know what, Ten Hag's going to be here next season. We're going to discuss that. Do we think that is the right choice? Among many other news stories going about. So people, please do hit the like button. Please do, of course, subscribe down below if you're new. You've got loads and loads to get into, loads and loads to gauge into. Gonna be a big show today. We've got news on Sancho's exit basically being confirmed. United looking at this new young fullback ahead of the summer. Very talented player. So yeah, big up everybody in the chat. We've got some updates on Greenwood, updates on McTominay, updates on just general stories. Ashworth, we've got an update on that from Ornstein. Let's get into it as well. And yes, right choice. Do let me know in the chat, is keeping Ten Hag the right choice by Ineos? So diving into the first story, David Ornstein came out with about 10 minutes ago, said this: there is nothing to suggest that Ten Hag will be leaving Manchester United at the end of the season. David Ornstein knows nothing about any of these 10 different managers we've been linked to, is not aware of any of it, and he is one of the most credible sources of information. So what David Ornstein says is normally somewhat accurate. This doesn't mean that Ten Hag will be here next season 100%, but it means that Ornstein's not aware of United sort of really showing any interest in other managers despite reports. Fabrizio Romano said that Manchester United deny any idea or contact to replace Ten Hag with a new head coach. Club sources guarantee stories on a new manager are categorically false. So Romano is saying those that United have denied any interest in sacking Ten Hag and replacing him, and that Romano even said himself that Ten Hag has a very good chance to remain as Manchester United manager next season. So these are the sort of the initial stories coming in. You've got Fabrizio Romano and you've got David Ornstein saying it's very unlikely that Ten Hag's going to go. There's no indications that Ten Hag's going to go. The United sources that they have communicated that Ten Hag's job is safe and they're not speaking to any other manager. Ten Hag, it might be a situation of they haven't spoken to any other manager yet. They're going to make a decision at the end of the season, and maybe at the end of the season we find out Ten Hag isn't safe. But you've got lots of tier 2 sources coming out saying Zidane this, De Zerbi this, Graham Potter this, Nagelsmann this, contact that, Ten Hag's gone, Ten Hag's going to leave from Disco Mira. You've got all these sources saying Ten Hag's going to leave and linking us to loads and loads of managers. But are these sources credible? All these tier 2 sources are linking us to numerous managers saying that Ten Hag's going to go, this and that. Are they just doing that because Man United season's sort of over? It's quite low for Man United clicks in the media right now, and they need some stories that are going to generate clicks. And are they just sort of saying things as more guesswork? Okay, my brother likes De Zerbi. We'll just say that United are really interested in De Zerbi. Is a lot of the news going out about new managers to United just kind of made up for clicks? Kind of put out there in the media? I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, because the two most reliable sources, and you could put the third in, Laurie Whitwell, in as well, have basically said that there's no serious indications of a Ten Hag exit, or Man United haven't really had any contact with other managers. That might be because Ineos are going to wait to the end of the season to decide if they want to sack Ten Hag, and would have in their head who they would approach at the end of the season if that's the case. But United are working very hard to deny any rumours that Ten Hag will leave. United are sort of making it clear, there's no indication that Ten Hag will leave, but not talking to any other managers. And there seems to be sort of indication, obviously, in the media that Erik Ten Hag is more likely to stay at United as well. To attract the best possible players, I suppose your Man United will need to finish top 4 or 5. Apparently, as things stand with the English clubs doing well in the Champions League, if we get 5th, we can qualify for the Champions League. I just don't see us catching Villa or Spurs, because I think even when we do win, it's not totally convincing. Not to be negative, I'm just trying to be realistic here. I hope that we can finish 5th and get in the Champions League that way, with maybe Villa, losing some Kamara to injury, McGinn's got a red card, those extra games. That'll be interesting as well. Ten Hag cannot be allowed to spend more. He is clueless. Now, I'm going to disagree with you there, Rex Banner. Ten Hag is not clueless. Ten Hag's money at Ajax was spent very, very well. What is clueless is those around Ten Hag that have allowed him to spend 85 million on Anthony, that have allowed him to spend 60 million of the budget on Mount. You look at the spending under Ollie. Ollie had a very good... You know what? Ollie had a much better talent ID than he gets credit for. Ollie wanted Bellingham very early days. Ollie didn't want Donny van de Beek. Ollie wanted Bellingham. Remember that. Ollie wanted Moises Caicedo. Ollie wanted Haaland when he was 5 million before he went to Austria. Ollie rang up United and said, get this Haaland kid. He's going to be 5 million quid. Ollie wanted Bellingham before we went to Dortmund. He saw it in Bellingham. Ollie wanted Moises Caicedo. Ollie wanted Harry Kane. Ollie wanted Declan Rice. Ollie did want Jadon Sancho, but that was partly down to the player. Ollie wanted a lot of good players at United, and he didn't get that. You know, Jose Mourinho got a lot of signings and they didn't work out. Van Gaal got a lot of signings that didn't work out. Ten Hag's got a lot of signings that haven't worked out. Okay, and while we shouldn't be relying on the manager's IQ and all of that to pick up signings, their talent ID, you've got to remember that our poor transfer business isn't Ten Hag's fault. Should we have spent 85 million on Anthony? No. But if we had Dan Ashworth or Omar Barada at the club 2 years ago, they would not have let Ten Hag spend 85 million on Anthony. They would not have let nearly 60 million on the budget go on Mason Mount that wasn't seen as a priority position. So people always say, oh, Ten Hag's clueless, Ten Hag clueless. Ten Hag's job is to coach the team, not to buy the team. Yes, Ten Hag needs to have an input on transfers. Yes, Ten Hag needs to have a say on transfers and the kind of players that we want to bring in on Manchester United. But Ten Hag's job isn't actually necessarily choosing who we buy. Ten Hag has been given too much power in transfers. We've gone from giving managers no power in transfers to too much power in transfers because John Murtough and Richard Arnold aren't confident in their ability to scout talent. So what's happened here is, yes, the money's been spent badly, and yes, you can blame elements of Ten Hag on that. But Ten Hag is doing something that isn't his job. He isn't meant to be doing the budgeting. That's what Omar Barada does at Manchester City. He's going to say, you want a right wing, you've got 50 million for a right wing, Anthony's 85 million, we're going to look elsewhere. And he would present 3 other names for Ten Hag to look at. And we would have signed one of the 3 other names instead of Anthony for the right wing position this summer. So people will say, oh, we spent all this money on Anthony, spent all this money on Mount, let's not give Ten Hag any more money. It's not about that. It's about actually, it's Ten Hag, yeah, one of those players. But now we're going to have competent people. We're going to be watching those players and say, look, we shouldn't spend 85 million on Anthony. We shouldn't spend 70 million on Casemiro. He's over a certain age. There'll be people at United to stop that. So I don't know why people are so like, sat Ten Hag, I'm not giving any more money, because he's going to have people around him. And for me, I can't blame Ten Hag as well. You can't put all the blame on Ten Hag, but you look at United. United do what they want to do. The people who've worked with the managers are awful. Ollie wanted Haaland. He didn't get Haaland. You know, Ten Hag's been working with the people that turned down an opportunity to sign Haaland for £5 million, Casado for £4 million, Julian Alvarez for £14 million as well. And have you seen Spurs' next 4 games? Very, very difficult, haven't they? They've got like Man City, Arsenal and Liverpool all coming up as well. We kept signing studs like Sancho and Anthony. That's on Murtough and Arnold. Well, to be fair, we thought Sancho would be a good signing, but we all sort of knew Anthony wasn't going to be worth money as well. You want to keep Erik Ten Hag in order to get rid of bad players, but you want to keep Rashford and Bruno. I want to keep Ten Hag and I want to keep Rashford and Bruno. I don't think Rashford's been good enough this season, but when you look at our team, if we sell Rashford and Bruno, we will be a lot worse off than if we sold Anthony and McTominay. If the midfielder and winger we sell is Anthony and McTominay, that's good sales. If the midfielder and winger we sell is Bruno and Rashford and we keep Anthony and McTominay, we'd be a lot worse off. I see a lot of Man United fans saying, oh, the first 2 players I sell would be Bruno and Rashford, and I don't know why. You know, you've got to look at Man United over the last 5 years. 3 out of the last 5 seasons, Bruno Fernandes and Rashford have been our 2 best players. 3 out of the last 5 seasons. They've both had 2 off seasons. But 3 out of the last 5 seasons, Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford have been Man United's best player. McTominay's been playing for the last 5 seasons. Has he been our best player in any of those seasons? No. So why would you sell Bruno and Rashford before you'd sell McTominay? Anthony's been crap both seasons at United. Sancho's been at United 3 seasons, have been poor all 3 seasons. Harry Maguire's been here 5 seasons, has had 1 good season. Wan-Bissaka's been here 4 or 5 seasons, had 1 good season. Okay, so when Wan-Bissaka's had 1 good season, when Maguire's had one, maybe 2 good seasons, you can say, when Anthony's not had a good season, when Sancho's not had a good season, when Eriksen's not had a good season and is aging, and when Casemiro's not been a good season and is aging, and when, you know, Martial's been here 5 years and had 1 good season in the last 5 years where he got that new contract, and you look at Manchester United and you think, well, this is the squad, this is the players, these players are aging. I don't understand how you can sit there and say Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford will be the first 2 players you'd sell. A lot of Man United fans want Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford gone. And I've been critical of some of Bruno's performances this season. He's not been at his best, and Rashford's not been at his best. And maybe they get more criticised because we know the levels that Bruno and Rashford are capable of reaching when at their best, and they're not near that. But an out-of-form Bruno and Rashford is still better than playing McTominay as a 10 and Anthony as a left winger. Rashford out of form is still better than Anthony in form, because we're not seeing him in form for United. Bruno out of form in the 10 is still better than McTominay in form. And when we're in a situation where we need to sell nearly half our squad, Why would you sell the Brunos and the Rashfords that we know can deliver, just not consistently, over players that haven't delivered at all? That's my stance. Bruno and Rashford, 3 of the last 5 seasons, have been our best players. So if they find form next season, they will be important for us next season. If McTominay finds form next season, he still won't be good enough to start. Do you know what I mean? That's the way I explain it. So I would not sell Bruno. I would not sell Rashford. I would sell the players that aren't good enough to play for United, because while a lot of you don't like Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford, they are 2 of our best players. They are good enough to play for United. They've just been in poor form. And because we've got no squad depth, because there's no depth to this squad whatsoever, that means when they are in poor form, they continue to play when in poor form because we've got no one to rotate them out with. If we sign some good players like Elise, if Rashford's in poor form next season, he goes on the bench. If we sign, some good midfielders or Mount stays fit, if Bruno's in poor form, he'll just go on the bench. And Bruno and Rashford on the bench is a lot better than, Eriksen and Antony on the bench. So I wouldn't sell Bruno and Rashford because we've got, for me, and people disagree with it. People give me stick for backing Bruno and Rashford, but I think they're 2 of our best players. Højlund, Maino, Garnacho, Lisandro Martinez are the 4 Man United players that are in the long-term project for me. But I think that Rashford's a good player. I think that Bruno Fernandes is a good player. I think Luke Shaw's a good player. I think Rafael Varane's a good player, and I think Dalot's a good player. And a lot of you guys watching don't rate those other players I've named, but Dalot, I think Onana could be good enough to be in the long-term project. He needs to show it. I think Dalot could be good enough to be in the long-term project. He needs to show it. Varane is good enough, but he's aging. I think that Bruno and Rashford are good enough to be in the long-term project. Sure, if he could stay fit, could be in the short-term project because of his age. I think, Højlund, Maino, Martinez, Garnacho, they're the 4 who are definitely in the long-term project for me. I think all those players have got glimpses of potential, maybe Mason Mount as well. So that, so people disagree with me on that, but I've never wanted, I don't want to sell Bruno or Rashford this summer. Bruno I'd keep, but Rashford, think it's time. Sometimes you have to let go and rebuild Bale, Coutinho, Suarez. If I was to sell one of Bruno or Rashford, it would be Rashford. It would be Rashford. I think for me, Bruno is capable of doing, I think, and people might disagree with me on that, on his day in form, Bruno Fernandes could be our best player. I think Bruno Fernandes, you see him for Portugal, you see what he's like in form. I think Bruno Fernandes can reach another level that no one else in our squad can reach. Maybe Højlund in the future, maybe Maino in the future. Like, you know me, I'm a big rater of Bruno Fernandes. I wouldn't sell him. And I know a lot of fans do want to sell him, but people are saying sell Bruno and Rashford and build a better team. But the thing is, you sell Bruno and Rashford, but we've got McTominay, Antony, Lindelof, Casemiro, Wan-Bissaka. Let's say we sell, Wan-Bissaka, Sancho, Antony, Lindelof, Eriksen, Maguire this summer. And then next summer, people are saying sell Bruno and Rashford. And this time next year, Bruno and Rashford have had another poor season. And all our other players have been a lot better than Bruno and Rashford. Then I think there's an argument for selling Bruno and Rashford. But even out of form, I could name 10 players that have been worse than Bruno and Rashford this season. And those 10 players that have been worse than Bruno and Rashford this season need to go, because those 10 players that have been worse than Bruno and Rashford this season have been worse than Bruno and Rashford the last 5 seasons. And I want them gone rather than players that have been our best players for 3 out of the last 5 seasons. Yes, they've not had their best season this year, but the 3 out of the last 5 seasons, they've been 2 of our best players. Why would I sell them over players that haven't performed over 5 years? For me, I think that they're 2 of our best players, and I get a lot of stick for backing Bruno and backing Rashford, but I just think we'd be silly to sell them, and we'd be a lot worse off if they weren't playing. I think we need depth, so if they are out of form, we can actually drop them, and that because we need competition for every space at United, but I wouldn't sell them personally. Myself, 10 to 12 players need to go exactly. And when you look at United and 10 to 12 players that need to go, Brandon Williams, that's 1. Wan-Bissaka could be 2. Lindelof could be 3. Maguire could be 4. Johnny Evans could be 5. Maybe one of the left backs, Malacia or Luke Shaw, could be 6 because of fitness issues. Amrabat 7. Eriksen 8. Casemiro 9, because I'm not selling Varane. McTominay 10. Sancho 11. Antony 12. Pelistri and Ahmad aren't wanted, so that's 13, 14. Martial's going to go 15. Mejbri might go 16. And Donny van de Beek might go 17. That's 17 players that I would sell before I would look at anyone else in the squad. That's 17. Alex B said we sold Bex. We can sell Rashford. We can sell Rashford. And if I was to sell one of Rashford or Bruno, I would sell Rashford. One, because I think he's more replaceable. But the reason I'd be reluctant to sell Rashford this summer is because he can deliver when we know Anthony and Sancho can't deliver. And I think Man United aren't capable of selling Pellistri, Ahmad, Anthony, Sancho, and Rashford all in one window and then replacing them with two good wingers that could stay fit and that could deliver what Rashford is capable of doing when in form. I don't trust United. We could cash in on Rashford this summer, but I think there is so much work to do that I almost think that's someone to look to cash into next summer if things aren't going Rashford's way. That's sort of the way I see it. I mean, look, I don't think Rashford's going anywhere. I don't think that Ineos will sell him, but it will be interesting to see as well. I'd keep Wan-Bissaka. I don't mind if Wan-Bissaka stays, but he's not been good this season. He's not really stayed fit this season. And I think that Delo has sort of established himself as being the better right back. And I'm going to get into a story about us looking at a right back as well. United need to sell 4 players, at least need to replace them with better players. Yeah, I mean, we've got 17, 18 players that could go as well. Anthony and Sancho selling huge losses will barely help with FFP, true. But for me, Anthony and Sancho can't play because of what he's done with the manager refusing to play. And, Rashford delivers way more than Anthony, so they need to be the first 2 wingers sold for me as well. Continuing on, let's get into news. So that's news on Ten Hag. I do want to talk a little bit about Ten Hag and if it's the right decision for him to stay. I personally think it is. It's been said here, conversations with Ineos and Erik Ten Hag have included the summer transfer window and have been very positive. They want to see results improve in order for them to give Ten Hag security, was something that Romano did say to add context on Erik Ten Hag's future and this whole Erik Ten Hag situation. Fabrizio Romano and David Ornstein are suggesting that, as far as they're aware, there's not really much talk going on between Manchester United and managers to replace Ten Hag, and that the sort of future of Ten Hag is looking pretty much comfortable, pretty safe. They've had discussions with transfers. They've had discussions with Ten Hag. It's been positive. Ten Hag knows that his job isn't 100% safe because things can happen between now and the end of the season, but it seems that no decision has been made on Ten Hag's future. And I think that's the right decision from Ineos. Now, I would understand if Ineos sacked Ten Hag. I would. I back Ten Hag. I want to succeed. I want him to succeed massively. 100%. But I would understand if Ineos decided to sack Ten Hag. I think we've lost 16 games this season. Only Sheffield United have conceded more shots than us, and while we don't have the players to play the way that Ten Hag wants to play, the fact that only Sheffield United have conceded more shots than us and they are unbelievably bad, one of the worst teams in Premier League history, does show you how poorly we're set up structurally, which Ten Hag has not fixed, and that's been a problem since day dot. The press has been a problem since day dot. I'd understand if Ineos decided not to go with Ten Hag through what we've seen this season, but I'd like Ten Hag to stay and I'd like Ten Hag to keep his job because I think he played brilliant football at Ajax. I was desperate for us to bring in Ten Hag. I wanted him over Poch because of how good the football was that Ten Hag played at Ajax. And a lot of people are saying, I want the Sporting Lisbon manager. I want Nagelsmann because they play great football. But we were saying we wanted Ten Hag because he played great football. And then he came to Manchester United and we weren't playing good football because, we didn't have the players. And even people wanted Ragnick because they said he played good football. Did Ragnick play good football? No. So Nagelsmann comes in, Amorim comes in, they don't play good football because we don't have the personnel to play good football. And Ten Hag could be doing better football, but I wanted Ten Hag because he played great football. I was impressed with Ten Hag's first season, thinking he overachieved, finishing third and winning the FA Cup and restoring stuff. This season, his new signings, other than Højlund, haven't integrated. Mason Mount's not integrated. He didn't get Kim Min-jae and he didn't get the DM that he wanted. And he's had big injury issues to Casemiro, to Lissandro Martinez, to Luke Shaw. He's had no left back. So when I look at the injuries, I look at the way they played at Ajax, which is why I wanted Ten Hag. I look at what he achieved last season, and I look at the fact that no Manchester United manager has succeeded post Sir Alex Ferguson. I would like Ten Hag to be given another year with a competent board, with competent recruitment to see what he can do. Because I don't think, Nagelsmann comes in and we play amazing football. I think Ten Hag could be doing better, and I would understand if he's sacked. But I've made it clear I'd like to see, personally, given Ten Hag time. If we sack Ten Hag, have to bring in improvement, Potter and De Zerbi or not. Exactly. If we sack Ten Hag to bring in Graham Potter, I don't see that as particular improvement. Now, talking of improvement to the structure, I do want to quickly get into the Dan Ashworth stories because we're 20 minutes into live stream and I've got a lot of news that I want to get into that I haven't really got into so far. So going into this story here, It was says there have been no significant developments, and Manchester United have not made any progress or any closer to agreeing a deal for Dan Ashworth. So we got lots of reports coming out, which we must have been clickbaited with, basically saying that Dan Ashworth was nearly done. The fee was going to be agreed for 10 million. There's been stories coming out from journalists that Dan Ashworth is done, that Dan Ashworth is being agreed at 15 million. David Ornstein is saying that is not true. But it was said by Luke Edwards of The Telegraph, who is a credible source, that Newcastle want to speed up negotiations for Dan Ashworth's exit to Manchester United, but they're still demanding a large compensation. Chief Executive Darren Eagles has taken the lead role in those negotiations, which are believed to be amicable. Also, Newcastle want to bring in Paul Mitchell, and that has given them more motivation to arguably sort of try and agree a deal with Dan Ashworth. And Newcastle might have to say, you know what, we're going to have to compromise here, and we're going to have to let him go for I think 10 million, agree a deal as well. And we will talk about Southgate. We will talk about the England squad as well. Kobbie Mainoo not being called up as well. I'm not too fussed about that, protect him from Southgate, but he definitely deserves over Jordan Henderson as well. Ten Hag staying would cause us problems as well. People were saying Spurs have spent effort and still got a style of play. Do you know why Spurs have got a style of play? Do you know what? I did a video on Spurs. I spoke about this. People don't realise this, but a lot of Spurs' players that came in, they brought before Ange came, ready for Ange to come in. And this is what I'm going to say. So Sarr and Udogie were £15 million signings that Spurs had brought, loaned out for a year, and they've come in this season. And what Spurs did about 2-3 years ago, and this is what Man United haven't done. If you look at Man United signings over the last 3 years, 75% of Man United signings over the last 3 years have been over 30 or loans. 75% of our signings over the last 3 years have been over 30 or loans, not long-term signings, not signings that can play expansive football. You look at Tottenham signings over the last 3 years, and this is one thing that Ange has over Ten Hag. Despite spending less money, Tottenham, and I did a video on this on my second channel, have actually adopted a really smart transfer strategy in recent years. It all started, that's two seasons ago, when Spurs went and got Kulu and Bentancur on loan, and then they had good loans and they brought them permanently. 2 young, good players. They brought Christian Romero on loan. They got Christian Romero on loan and then brought him permanently. Good young player. And then the season after that, Tottenham went and got Sarr and Udogie, 15 million players, very unknown, loaned them out for a year or kept them at the club that they brought them from, said, look, we're going to buy Udogie in 2022 to come in 2023. We're going to buy Sarr in 2022 to come in 2023. We're going to buy Porro in 2022 to come in 2023. So Spurs bought Sarr, Porro and Udogie, 3 technical young players for the future that stayed at their current club on loan and then joined Spurs later down the line. They've already got Lucas Bergvall in, who's currently on loan in Sweden. He stayed there. They brought him in January. He will join up with Spurs in the summer. And Spurs started this 3 years ago. Spurs changed and adapted their transfer strategy 3 years ago to go for young technical players that can cover lots of ground. So a lot of Spurs' signings in the last 3 years have been young players that can play the style of football that Ange wants to play, because Spurs stopped going for old high-wage player and loan players and doing short-term deals and actually had this long-term strategy. So the players that, believe it or not, as bad as Tottenham were last season, the players that Ange inherited are more capable of playing technical football than the players Ten Hag has right now through injury. You look at how poor Tottenham were through injuries when they lost those few technical players. Ange was doing his best, but you saw Tottenham drop off as soon as they lost those technical players. Ten Hag, the technical players he has in the Sandro Martinson, sure, he's lost. So yes, Ten Hag spent more money than Ange, and yes, Ten Hag should be doing better than what he's doing. And I think, not to disrespect Ange, I think Ange is doing an incredible job. 75% of Man United signings in the last 3 years have been over 30 or loan deals, short-term signings that can't play possession football. Tottenham, very smart approach in the transfer in the last 3 years. And yes, we spent more money and we signed bigger name players, but Ange has players with more capabilities to play modern football. And that is the one bit of sympathy I'll get, because people often compare Ten Hag to Ange, and Ange is doing better. And I think Ange is very good at raising the floor. Ange can get bad players playing decent. Ten Hag can't. But Ten Hag can get good players playing brilliant, like Mainoo. If you've got the technical capabilities to play Ten Hag ball, Højlund, Mainoo, Delo, he can turn you from good to great. But if you don't have the capabilities, he can't take you from good to great, whereas Ange can find a way to implement it into the system as well. Bring Ange to us tomorrow and he couldn't play his way. He inherited players that can play his way and brought in more. Yeah, Tottenham were a lot smarter in the transfer window than us as well. Ten Hag's had 2 seasons. We've regressed. Look, Ten Hag's not been good enough, and I will be critical of Ten Hag. We have progressed. He hasn't been good enough this season. But you also look at no Luke Shaw, no Martinez. That's massively affected our build-up. We signed Mason Mount to help our midfield issues, not played at all. Casemiro's been a shadow of himself this season, completely out of form. His legs seem to gone. Eriksen's legs seem to go. Fred was really important last season, lost him. Casemiro and Eriksen. Our 3 best midfielders last season, bar Bruno. Our midfield last season was either Casemiro, Fred and Bruno, or Casemiro, Eriksen, Bruno. Fred is gone. Eriksen can't do it anymore, and Casemiro can't do it anymore. So we're just stuck with Bruno there because, you know, Mount's not coming. We've lost, obviously, Mount through injury. Amrabat's not been Amrabat, and Ten Hag's not really played him. But Højlund's been good, but he's young. We've not really had too many new signings to influence us. And the key players last season, if you looked at Man United's 5 best players last season, Martinez, Casemiro, Rashford, Bruno, Shaw. Luke Shaw's been injured most of the season. Casemiro's been injured most of the season and when played not good enough, and Martinez has been injured most of the season. 3 out of our 5 best players last season have been injured. The other 2 are Rashford and Bruno, who have been out of form, particularly Rashford. So you've got to look at it and say, that could be a big reason why we've regressed. Kobbie Mainoo is supposed to be a generational talent that can keep the ball, but we can't keep possession. What about Delo? I think he's a technical fullback. Kobbie Mainoo and Delo have got lots of potential and stuff. And I think Ten Hag completely misused Kobbie Mainoo last game. And considering how much Casemiro was struggling in build-up, I'm not sure why he didn't put Kobbie Mainoo as the first receiver of the ball in midfield as well. Patrici recruitment under the radar, excellent for Spurs in his brief time. They're 100%. Ange couldn't do anything with our squad as well. I think, look, and also you look at Spurs' rest defence, they concede a lot of goals and a lot of shots as well, because, again, it's not just that we're bad as well. Other than Højlund, we didn't strengthen in the market. We still stood still where everyone else improved. Yeah, you look at Declan Rice, you look at Timber, to Arsenal. You look at the business that other clubs did. Liverpool signing Gravenberch, Endo, McAllister and Szoboszlai to refresh the whole midfield in one window. A lot of other teams did a lot more than us in the window. And that's another reason as well. People say excuses. I mean, look, you can see it as making excuses, but I'm just trying to look at this from the most logical perspective I can. Ten Hag's not been good enough. I said I'd understand if Ineos sacked him because the way we're playing is awful and we've lost so many games that maybe there's a point where you can run out of excuses. But I do think there's things you've got to look into, the board, the poor recruitment, injuries. That the fact that no manager succeeded at United post Sir Alex Ferguson is where my sympathy for Ten Hag comes from. Because after Ollie was sacked and Rangnick came in and we knew that Rangnick played good football and he couldn't play good football with the Man United squad, I said, you know what? Until the board changes, I'm not going to rally for another Man United manager to be sacked. And I made my promise on a live stream. I said I'm going to stop rallying for Man United managers to be sacked because I think the problem goes past the managers now as well. It's the reality, you go through the squad and there's only a handful of technical players. Literally, the only players that are technically good at United is Onana, Diego Delo, Lisandro Martinez, Luke Shaw, Kobbie Mainoo, Højlund. Probably, in terms of possession. Garnacho has capabilities, Bruno has capabilities. But yeah, that when you think of technical stuff, yeah. So let's continue on to the next news because we have got a few stories and I've been waffling a lot. I've not really got too much into news. I've been waffling a lot. But I wanted to get into this story and a few other stories. It was said that Manchester United scouts are touring Europe's biggest clubs in an attempt to get a head start on everyone else's summer transfer window. This is hopefully true. This is hopefully what I want us to do. How many times have we watched Man United sit around and do nothing, and Arsenal have already brought in 3 signings, and Manchester City have already brought in 3 signings, and Liverpool have already brought in 3 signings, and we've not signed someone, or we've was always just still linked to Mason Mount. You know, Mason Mount we signed and then nothing happened for ages. We signed Malacia early last window, got Eriksen, Martinez, and then nothing happened for ages, and we were just sitting there for 2 months and doing nothing, whereas all of our rivals were signing players. We need to be in a position where, okay, we're on pre-season, we've got 4 signings in, maybe we'll get someone late after pre-season, bish, bash, bosh. That's what I want to be. I don't want to be sitting here, Man United signed 1 player, dilly-dallying, faffing about, linked to this player, linked to that player. Arsenal signed 3, Spurs have signed 4, Liverpool have signed 3. I don't want that window. I want United to be proactive. I want United to be quick, and I want United to be busy this window. And hopefully that is the case, and hopefully that's what United are going to do as well. Antonio Silva, great centre-back, would love him at United, but I think value for money because we want 2 centre-backs, midfielder, right-wing striker, potentially back-up fullback as well. Don't know if we're going to have the funds there as well. No managers had time or been back fully at United, I agree, and had to work with incompetent boards. And Mount is also very technical but never available. Mount has technical qualities. Mount's technical qualities are more off the ball technical than on the ball. Mount's very technically clever off the ball with his movement, but I think maybe he lacks a few things on the ball. But yeah, Mount has definitely a little bit of technical thing as well. Erik Ten Hag's man management is terrible. Like, yeah, look, if I was going to be criticize Erik Ten Hag, I like Erik Ten Hag, but yeah, his man management's been poor, his stubbornness has been poor, his substitutions have been poor. There's things that Erik Ten Hag has got wrong this season, and I understand if Ineos sack him, but I would like to see a manager given time for a change as well. If we get Elise, Wan-Bissaka could be a good link. I don't know, because Elise is not really the type of explosive winger that dribbles the ball. He's a pass first winger rather than a carry first winger. So I think that he would probably work better with Delot, because Delot can give more support doing his overlaps and underlaps. Personally, myself, but look, I like Wan-Bissaka, but I think he could be moved on. I think Ten Hag will want a very attacking fullback as well. Enough with the ball about Ten Hag leaving. It's been rubbish all along. You've got to stick with the manager or you're going around in circles. And I feel like that as well. Ineos got Barada from Man City and Ashworth from Newcastle. Now we should get David Fallows and Barry Hunter from Liverpool. I think it's harsh to say his man management's poor. He's dealt with stuff. Yeah, he has dealt with stuff, but I think he could have dealt with some situations better. But we don't know what really goes on, because Man United players have been an absolute mess behind the scenes as well. I saw a lot of Hollywood passes from Mount over the years, and Mount could definitely unlock a defence and make us better. Going into transfers, this is the story about a fullback United have been looking at, and it was said that Manchester United are pushing to sign 15-year-old Wolves right-back Wes Okudua. The right-back has represented England and is highly rated at Wolves, and he was on the bench for the first team versus Newcastle. So we did videos like this a year ago. So a year ago, I did a video saying that Manchester United were going to sign this Harry Amas kid from Watford, and we signed Harry Amas. A year ago, I did a video saying we're going to sign this Bian Shiri kid, who's been really good in the academy from Cardiff. We signed Bian Shiri. A year ago, I did a video saying that Man United are going to sign the Fletcher twins, and we signed the Fletcher twins. This looks like another youngster that we're going to sign. What Man United have done really well is they've been signing some of the best 14, 15-year-olds in football and then slowly bringing them into under-18s and developing them. Harry Amas was incredible last season. England left-back. Man United signed one of the best 15-year-olds in football last season in Harry Amas. He's 16 now, playing for the under-18s. They did it with Bian Shiri. They've done it with the Fletcher twins. I think this guy for Wolves apparently has been England's best right-back. Wolves think he's massive. So I think it would be smart business to sign for United to sign this guy while he's 15 and throw him into the under-18s and develop him. I think one thing that Man United have done well was their youth recruitment for the academy. That I think it's been really good. It's just hopefully the first team recruitment will improve. Harry Amas is class, by the way, and we do have some stories and updates on the Harry Amas situation. It's said that Ten Hag is lining up to bring Harry Amas on tour for pre-season. He doesn't think he's quite ready to be thrown in the deep end now at left back, which is fair because he is 16. I think there's a massive difference between 16 and 18. He's 16, he's still very young, but it was said that Ten Hag is a big rater and a big admirer of Harry Amas, and he's very likely to be going on the pre-season tour, which again is more indications that Ten Hag could be here next season, because they're talking about players that Ten Hag wants to buy, they're talking about players that Ten Hag wants to sign, they're talking about Harry Amas, young players that Ten Hag wants to promote, and you've got David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano, two of the most reliable journalists, saying this and that about Ten Hag. It almost feels like there's a lot of indications, in my opinion, going about at the moment, which might indicate that, you know what, Ten Hag looks like he's going to stay. It looks like he's going to stay, but I think that's smart business for Manchester United going in for these young players. Modern football has become about a ping pong type of football. I can't think any of technically gifted players in the Premier League. I mean, I personally disagree with that, but I sort of get what you're trying to get at there as well. Mason Mount's like Jack Wilshere, he's either injured or not. Well, before this time a year ago, Mason Mount's injury record was fine. It's just got really bad as well. Ajax will beat Aston Villa. We kind of need Aston Villa to win for the sake of, I guess, if we do get fifth place, qualifying for the next round. In terms of other stories, it's basically been said that Sancho's exit is pretty much confirmed. It was said that Borussia Dortmund will explore all possibilities to keep Jadon Sancho next season. It was said that Man United want to get rid of Jadon Sancho at all costs and are ready to take a huge financial loss, and that United are willing to accept a price of 30 to 34 million for him. But it was said that Man United have signalled their interest to Borussia Dortmund in getting a deal done for Sancho and are working on an agreement with the German club to create the perfect deal. It's been confirmed by top sources that Sancho will leave United. He will not be welcome back. I think the fact that we're getting news that Ten Hag is going to stay here next season, at the same time we're getting news that United have decided that Sancho will not return, again interlinks. Sancho maybe returns if Ten Hag leaves, but it was said by Sancho's sources himself and Sancho himself that he will not play for Ten Hag again. Sancho will not play for United again if Ten Hag stays, all of a sudden, the day we're getting briefs from Ornstein that Ten Hag's going to stay, we're also getting briefs that Man United have confirmed that Sancho will leave, and they will work on all possibilities to make sure his exit is done next season. They will explore a loan because Dortmund do want a loan. Hopefully we don't agree to loan him out to Dortmund because we're just being mugged off there. But Man United are trying to sort of find a way to compromise and get a deal done for him to go to Dortmund next season and see if they can maybe get 30 million for Jadon Sancho. Seems to be the case as well. So that's essentially been confirmed. In terms of other exits, I think Mason Greenwood leaving is pretty much confirmed. One of the few sellable assets we have. Could be controversial to bring him back, and he wants to stay out in Spain. And then obviously Marcus Rashford has been linked to a £75 million move to PSG, which I don't see happening. And Anil has also said that United have no interest in selling Rashford, and Rashford has no interest in leaving. So they're sort of the news stories going about at the moment as well. Good evening, Alice. Just tuned in. What's happening, United PR? Well, also reports are coming out from reliable sources that there's Man United are not having any talks with other managers. That doesn't necessarily mean that Ten Hag's safe, but it just means that no decision's been made. A lot of reports and stories were coming out that a decision had been made, this, a decision had been made, that, and all of that as well. I think for me, a lot of the manager news, or United for Potter, United for De Zerbi, United for Nagelsmann, I think that's all for clicks. I think that maybe Ineos know what they're going to do, but I don't think there's been any indication that Ineos have actually done anything with new managers. And Ten Hag is safe till the end of the season. It could be safe next season. Man United apparently going to be signing a 15-year-old right back from Wolves, which I believe could be true because we were linked to Harry Amas, the Fletcher twins being Shearer, we got those done quite early as well. We seem to do quite well with our under 15 signings. That's one thing we're actually good at, signing 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds. That's one thing we're good at. In terms of other news stories, Sancho confirmed to be leaving. I expect he's leaving. I can't see United bringing him back, especially because he refused to pay for 4 months. It's just a matter of how do we leave him because we want to get money for him, but he might have to go out on loan again. Obviously, Greenwood looks set to leave as well, and Dan Ashworth deal's been delayed, but Newcastle want to hurry up. So hopefully Newcastle sort of lower the price for Dan Ashworth. And in terms of summing out news as well, Sancho's worth 50 million, Greenwood till sell-on clause should be inserted. When you look at the wages, when you look at the off-the-field issues we've had with Sancho and Greenwood, if Sancho and Greenwood were on better wages and we didn't have any off-the-field issues with Sancho and Greenwood, we could get 50 million for both. But unfortunately, you've got to look at the wider context for those stories and understand why we're not maybe getting the money that we'd hope we got for someone like Sancho, or would have hoped we got for someone like Grealish as well. Liverpool are playing at Sparta Prague today, so I might watch that in the background if it's a good game. But to be honest, I feel like it could be quite a boring game as well. What's your thoughts on the England squad? I think that people like Ben White deserve to be in the England squad, but he's fallen out with Southgate. I would have put Maino in over Henderson, but I'm not that bothered that Maino wasn't called up. Protect him. I like that Branthwaite's been called up. I like that Anthony Gordon's been called up because I think they were very deserving of their spots and being called up. And to be honest, I think that bar Henderson for Maino and maybe Ben White getting in there, but I get he's fallen out with Sancho. I think that Southgate actually got it right because you've got to look at injuries and stuff as well. So I actually thought the Southgate squad was okay, bar the Henderson one, to be honest. Finally dropped Carbon Phillips as well. So, yeah. Alice, do you think we'll beat the Scousers Sunday? Unfortunately not, but I think because it's a cup game and not a Premier League game, maybe we could be a little bit more on it, and we've had a longer rest period than Liverpool. Liverpool are playing now, whereas we've had a week rest, but I think Liverpool are going to be playing a very rotated squad. Let me look at the Liverpool squad. So Liverpool are playing Conor Bradley, Kwanzaa, Gomez, Robertson. So they're resting Konate and Van Dijk for the Man United game. Endo's playing again and Soboslai's playing, but they're resting McAllister. Salah's playing, Nunes playing, Gakpo's playing. So they're only resting Diaz, Van Dijk, McAllister, Harvey Elliott really ahead of the Man United game. So maybe we have a slight fitness issue over them, but they're 5-1 up on aggregate. So I think they can take this game quite easy against Sparta Prague as well. Surprise turn for manager Michael Carrick. Michael Carrick and McKenna have been linked to United jobs, but can't see anything happening. But listen, people, I'm going to wrap up the live show here. Big up everybody that tuned into today's live show. Please do hit that like button if you haven't already. And of course, subscribe down below if you're new. Thank you for watching. Bye.